Today we're doing art critiques. Hello everyone! Welcome to Art Business with Ness. I'm Ness and I'm a children's book illustrator. Today I'm so excited because we are starting art critiques, very new video series where I'm going to be reviewing your illustrations. So how it works is I have asked the artists in my community to send me their illustrations that they would like reviewed, and I will go over these illustrations in a video pointing out what works, what doesn't work, and what we can improve to make this illustration really shine. I've been wanting to do art critiques for a very long time, but I wanted to wait a little bit, grow the community a bit, so that we would have a larger pool of artists interested in being reviewed. And that is not going to be a problem now, because when I reached out to my community asking for people who would like to send in their illustrations to get reviewed, you answered in droves. You sent me so many of your beautiful illustrations, and now we have like a whole backup. I was so surprised by the tsunami of art that you sent me. You guys are so awesome. So now I have a very large folder of illustrations to go through, so we will do many videos of art critiques. If you too would like to participate, then you can join my Facebook group, the Freelance Illustrators Cafe. I will leave the link to that in the description. You can go in there, join, and there is a dedicated post in the announcement where you can leave your illustration. Okay, so if you're new here, first of all, let's go over why am I qualified to give art critiques? I've been doing art in total for about 20 years, professionally for the last 6 years. I've also been to art college in both visual arts and also traditional animation. Of course, I still have much to improve myself. As artists, we never stop learning. That's one of the best things about this whole art thing. But, you know, over the years, I've accumulated a lot of knowledge about art, so I thought that maybe I could help you out. And here we are. But right before we jump into it, if you're also as passionate about illustration as I am, and you would like to see more videos like this, then make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the little bell. The bell sends you a notification every time I post a new video, so this way you're sure that you won't miss any of the advice. Alright, let's go! We are starting this series with this beautiful illustration by Zimonska. How pretty is that? You can find Asia's work on Instagram at Joanna_Z_art. I'll leave the link to that in the description to see her beautiful work. All the illustrations you submitted really are really great. I was so impressed by the quality. I mean, look at this. Look at this. So beautiful. Level in my community is so extremely high. There's so much skill because it's all artists like you who want to make a living from art. So everyone is quite serious about it and they are doing the work. So Asia, there's so much working for you here. This style is really wonderful. It's so cute and it's very appropriate for the children's book market. I love your little textures that you have, like here and in the leaves. It's so cute. I really like how it gives like some sort of a decorative sort of aspect to it. And your palette is really great. I love your colors. How pretty is that little fresh mint green that you have going on? Really nice color. Now the illustration is really great as it is now, but of course there's always some things that we can improve. So one thing that I've noticed is that there's not a lot of depth in this illustration, and I know at least partly it's on purpose because this is quite a flat style, but some things could give still a little bit more depth even in a flat style illustration like this. For example, your textures are not scaling. So this bush on the front here, the texture is exactly the same as what you have here in the back trees. Usually you would want to have a little bit more detail in the texture that are up front and less detail in the texture out back, and the scale of it can be different too. So, you know, bigger leaves here, smaller leaves in the one in the back because it's much further back. Another thing that you can do is atmospheric perspective. So atmospheric perspective is this principle that the closer elements are to the sky, then the closer they are in color to the color of that sky. So it's like those mountain, you know, landscape pictures where the mountains that are really far are more blue and more like the colors of the sky, and the closer they are to the camera, the more they look like gray rock. The same principle here, these bushes here in the back could really be more pale and more like the color of the sky. And up front, you want them to be darker. If your sky was a night sky, it would be the opposite. Everything further back would be darker because it's closer to your black sky, and everything further would be lighter and lighter. This is a very easy trick to give some more depth to your illustration. So here, your bushes, I'm just gonna pick a random color and put it to multiply just to darken like really quickly. It's not gonna be pretty or anything. Just to show you what we could do if we darken these bushes up front. And what's nice with that is when you have some elements like that up front, it can really frame your picture as well, closing up your composition. This, boom, 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 boom. Okay, and let's make this a bit darker still, maybe a little bit more blue. Yeah, you can really go like quite dark too. It frames the illustration, it works really nicely. And now one of the palest things that you have here is this bush in the back. Maybe this one here would make a little bit darker as well. It's so close to the color of your grass, so maybe I would put like a little bit differentiation here. Creates 3 planes in your illustration. The front that's really dark, the middle that's a middle tone, and then the back that's paler. So that helps create this depth in your illustration. Another thing that I've noticed is that the bear is quite small compared to the rabbit. Like if you put them one next to the other, the rabbit is like over half the height of the bear with his ears. So this rabbit, for example, you could put him really a lot smaller, and that would help to have these a little bit more to scale. But it is a stylistic choice. It's not necessarily a mistake. So let's see, for example, we could have him like maybe about this size, and it creates some nice variety in your image as well. Now, of course, we'd have to color in the door so it's all like similar. Right, this will do for now, just to show you something that we could do. Again, this is more of a stylistic choice. Now, another thing that I've noticed is the door itself. So we don't see here, the door is ajar, but we don't see any hinges, and the doorknob is in the middle of the door, which is a little bit weird. And I know this is a round door, so it's not necessarily going for realism, but if we saw some sort of hinges, it would help to understand that this door is actually open, because now it looks it looks very weird with the perspective. Not sure exactly if the door is actually ajar or not. And it's quite hard to tell as well if it's open towards us or away from us. So if you had some sort of, oh god, I'm gonna butcher this again. If you had some sort of like hinges, and also you would expect to see like a little crack here. And also something that you can do, and I'm not gonna keep this, but these lines here can help tell your story. So they're further apart here because it's closer, and then they can be a little bit tighter together in the back because the perspective. So, you know, you're getting some sort of gradation. The closer that it's getting towards here, and that helps also see that the door is ajar and in perspective. But I'm gonna get rid of this for right now. Another thing that I've noticed that is a really small detail is these pots. There's no perspective at all on them. And even if you are having a very flat style, it's good to have some perspective elements. Here I would say that your horizon line is around here, thereabouts. So you would have to see the top of the pots. And since we don't, it really flattens the image. If drawing the full like cylinder like this isn't with your style, there's still some things that you can do. One thing that I really like to do is having like a flat edge and then doing something like this. It's really sort of stylized, but it still gives the impression that this is in perspective because we can see the top. So that's something that you can do. Now, the last thing that I want to mention is the tones in this image. So I'm just gonna turn everything to grayscale for a second to show you what I mean. So we have a lot of middle tones here in this image. It's a little bit better because I darkened these front bushes, but without it, you can really see how most of the image in this is in this middle gray. There's not much contrast in the image. and that could really help with readability if there was more contrast. So darkening those bushes, that really helps. The most contrast that you have in this image is the dark part here inside the house. There's not much on the bear, which he is quite readable because of the color, but you know, it would really help if there was as well a little bit of differentiation in tone. So something that you could do is make the bear darker. Let's see here, we're gonna do the same multiply trick just to very quickly darken him a little bit. Here we go. So already you can see him a little bit better. And something else that you could do is you have some dark leaves right behind him. You don't really need those since this is a layer. Well, you could also put them paler if you want a little extra detail, or you could just remove that layer. Having behind him being more pale helps him stand out. And since we talked about the atmospheric perspective, it's right perfect with that to have the back here be paler. And that helps with the readability. See? We can even darken him a little bit more still. Of course, we want the colors to still work nicely. This character here also has a problem of contrast. He's the exact same, tone as the door, and he does stand out a little bit because of the white parts on him, but still, you really want a little bit more contrast for it to be more readable. So in this case, you could darken the door, for instance. Let's do that. Especially on this side here, that could help so that we can read that the door is ajar. So that would help also in that regard. So now you can see he stands out a lot more. And these are some very small changes that we did. Like if we remove all of this, then, well, let's keep that one maybe. If we remove all of this, you can see that here everything is sort of this middle gray, and when we add the correction already, there's more contrast that helps the important parts pop out. You really want your characters to have enough contrast, and you also want some elements to be darker, some elements to be white, so that you're really using the entire range of tones. All in all, such a nice illustration. Even before these changes, it was so good. There's so many good things about it. You're really onto something, Asia. I love your style especially. It's so good. Next up, we have this beautiful book cover by Maria Capizza. You can find her at her beautiful website, mariaillustration.com. I will leave the link to that in the description. So Maria sent this illustration with a message saying she's having trouble with this cover. She's not satisfied with it, but she can't quite put her finger on what's wrong. She's also a bit uncertain about what to do about this text and the type that she's using, if it's fine or if she should use a handwritten script instead. So first of all, I think we can all agree that Maria is being a little hard on herself because this is a great illustration. It's very, very compelling for a book cover. I would definitely want to pick this book if it was in a bookstore. Don't you agree? Having the character placed like this really puts the reader in her shoes. We can see what she sees. And I really like how the text follows the angle of the ramp here. So well done. The title looks really intentional like this. It shows that you thought about this before illustrating. It's not just slapped on as an afterthought. And it's very clearly readable, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. So kudos, Maria. But of course, Maria, you're looking for some things that you can actually improve. So let's get to those fixes that we can do. So first of all, this piece also has little tone variation. So if we remove the saturation here, we can see there is this part here is really dark and she is whiter, but we could really boost that because if you look at the little thumbnail here, book covers have to look good in small. And if you look at it small, you know, it doesn't pop out as much as it could. We could really boost the contrast here. And Maria actually had a portfolio review with me last month, and you had some grayscale pictures in there that I told you the same, that you know, it's some parts were like really dark and hard to read. So I know that this is an issue that you could be working on very intentionally going forward. Turning everything to black and white to see your tones better, really helpful, just like I did with Asia's illustration and I'm doing here. It can really help you see where the parts that are not as readable that would need a little bit more contrast. So here what I immediately see is that we could really boost the brightness on this character. She's a lot closer to us, so that wouldn't look weird at all, and she's dressed in white. So we could really make her a lot brighter. It would help her stand out so much against the background, and also in small size thumbnails, she would really pop out. All right, so here, let me add a mask, and we're gonna make her a lot brighter, boost the contrast. Yeah, even that much, that could work. See, this kind of looks like there's a light coming from another room that the character is closer to, and the rest of the house is not as well lit. So it works a lot, and look at this thumbnail. Already, like, such a difference. It just popped out so much. Let's look at this in color. It still works. It does. We could even boost it even more and it would work. And then this area in the back could be even darker. I think especially this level here behind her, because we have this level on the side of the staircase, and this level in the back is the same color, but it's more further back. So I think to differentiate those two levels, we could really make this one, actually, I'm gonna do a layer of multiply here, I think. So if we make this level here a lot darker, we can push it back and push that depth in the image more. Here we go. All right. Now, of course, we could play with this a little bit, like maybe quite, like it doesn't need to be quite so much, but just a little bit to differentiate here. I think it already helps quite a bit. And we could also push a little bit more darkness in these corners so that we can really, you know, focus on this section here. Yeah, you know, something like that. And then him could be even darker as well, so he really pops out because he is quite subtle, which is good because he's a ghost. Like, you don't want him to be clear as day, but his silhouette could be a little bit more poppy. So already, you know, if we go back to here and then we had the changes, this is much more contrasted, and so already it pops out more. Well, next we're just gonna remove these, however, because I want to focus on some of the little perspective errors that I've seen in this picture, and I think it's gonna be easier if we go directly to the original image without my things scribbled on top. So some of the things I noticed, the very first thing I noticed is the lines here that are going like that in this direction. For here, this is not in line with the perspective. These lines here, these little sticks, they should all be vertical, just as these ones here. No matter the depth in the illustration that you're at, these will be, you know, always vertical, unless you have a 3 points perspective image. But in this case, it's not like drastic enough that they would be like this. So these lines all need to be perfectly vertical, and the lines from the wallpaper as well. What this does right now is, since they are angled like this, it looks like this whole second level of the house is like completely skewed, right? It looks like it's falling towards us. This one line here is the one that would be like this. So your title still works because it will be aligned to the ramp, but these, you know, they all need to be vertical. Other little perspective mistakes that I've noticed is that you're not always consistent with your horizontal line. So here your horizontal line is very low. I think it's even below the image here. It's maybe somewhere around here, because we can see, you know, under her dress. So the horizontal line is extremely low. And in general, you do a very good job of being consistent with that. These stairs, the first layer here, extremely well drawn. It works so well, but some of the details are not matching up. So let's see here. I've noticed, for instance, we can see here the top. You've drawn the top of the frame, but since the horizon line is so low, the horizon line is like the level that we're looking at. That's where your camera is or where your eyes are. So if the person is looking from under here, they're like on the floor, flattened on the floor, looking up, then we would need to see the bottom of the frame, not the top. So little details like that, they really kind of can look a little bit out of place. The inside as well, we'll see, you know, under here, not this part here, because we're looking from the bottom up. Another thing that's not quite consistent is the details on the characters herself. So the further up that we're going from the horizon line, the more that these, you know, like this is here an ellipse, it's gonna be more and more open the more we go up. And here it's like, it's practically a circle. These ellipses are gonna, you know, start opening up the more that we go up. So her waistband here should be like really, really circular like this. Her sleeves, we should be able to see like inside her sleeves, all the way inside her sleeves. This little dish here, there's no way that we can see this dish from up. Like, it looks like we're seeing it from an above standpoint. If she's tilting it that much for us to be able to see that, it's because the candle is like flying out of there. So it's gonna be the opposite. You know, we're gonna see the candle completely like this from the bottom. We're not gonna see up from this dish at all. This is gonna be the bottom. I'm gonna remove some of these lines here. Her arms and hands, they work well enough, but if we're seeing her from the bottom like this, it will work even better if we can see like the inside of her hands. Because we're seeing that like from the bottom, it would work even better. For her to be holding this dish like this, it's not quite realistic. It would be better if we really saw like the under of her arms. They would be like a little more like this. You know, try to think about the fact that we're seeing her from a vantage point that's extremely low and how her body would look from that vantage point. But mostly in general, the perspective in this image works really well, especially the stairs. It's very difficult to draw stairs in perspective, especially here that we have like stairs that are rotating as they go up. Extremely hard, and you did it really well. So I can forgive you all of the other small mistakes that you made here. Last thing that I want to talk to you about is the type. So I really think that it's not too bad here. It works pretty well. But like you said, I think it might work even better, especially since it's like an horror ghost type story. I think it would work even better if it was hand-drawn. This type especially, it looks like Times New Roman or something. It's pretty ordinary. Sometimes, you know, try some little variation, like even writing in it caps lock. Since this is for your portfolio, I don't think you need to put a placeholder for the publishing house either. You can try it in a few different fonts, in a few different like italics or caps lock, things like that. I really encourage you to go look at different covers of things that exist and see what fonts they're using. The title would look wonderful, handwritten, that would really give it a little extra oomph. But for the name of the author, you can certainly go a font if you want. But this one looks just a little bit out of place. So I encourage you to do some research and see what kind of fonts look good on these book covers. It's easy to forget that as illustrators, graphic design and text and type and all of this stuff, it's not our specialty. And although we have a good eye to see what looks good and what doesn't, we haven't studied all these graphic design principles, especially when it comes to text. And this is completely different from our skill set. So we have to really look into this if we want to do it effectively. When you're working on a professional gig, normally you will have a graphic designer with you that will take care of all this stuff. But if you're making stuff for your portfolio like this and you're working on it all alone, you need to make sure that it looks good enough for your portfolio. So do some research because, you know, you can be forgiven that this is not, you know, your area of expertise. You make beautiful pictures. That's what you're good at. So if you want this to look, you know, up to par, you need to brush up a little bit on those graphic design skills. But overall, a very stunning piece. And all of those things that I mentioned are pretty minor things, all things considered. Like they're all fairly quick fixes. So I really encourage you to go in and rework those few little things that I mentioned. You could really take this piece to the next level quite easily by making these small changes. And this piece is so great. It has so much potential, and I think it's gonna be so amazing in your portfolio when it's finished. And that's it for today's art critique. If you've submitted an illustration or if you're interested in submitting one now, don't worry, I will make sure to try to get to your illustration as fast as I can. But I can promise that I'll be able to get to every single one. It will depend on the volume that I get. If I'm not able to get to every one of them, then I will prioritize ones where I have lots to say or, you know, things that are very educational. But for right now, that's it for me today. I really hope that you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to let me know that you like this video and that you would like more art critiques. It also helps our very small channel grow, so I really appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!